Billionaire investor Warren Buffett, who told investors earlier that he had made a mistake betting on airlines, is continuing to sell stocks amid the coronavirus pandemic. The latest regulatory filing from Berkshire Hathaway shows. After pretty much laying low in the first 3 months of the year, Warren Buffett made sweeping changes to its stock portfolio during the second quarter. Most notably, he continued to sell off equities. Here is, Buffett continues to sell stocks in 2020, and the factors behind it are shocking. If you're a subscriber, well, welcome back to Investing for You. But if you're new to this channel and you want to enjoy more of our engaging content, make sure to click that subscribe button and use that trigger finger by smashing the like button. Now let's get into it. After dumping shares in 19 positions during the first quarter, Warren Buffett fully exited 7 positions and sold off parts of another 11 stakes. But he was a little more active on the buying side too, adding to 4 positions and initiating a stake in a company that's well outside of his traditional wheelhouse. The Oracle of Omaha has made a few other interesting moves as of late too. That includes finally putting Berkshire's massive cash pile to use in a $9.7 billion buyout of Dominion Energy's midstream energy business, his biggest deal in years, and a big bet on himself. When Buffett starts a new stake in some company or adds to an existing one, investors read into that as a vote of confidence. But if he pairs his holdings on a stock, it can spark investors to rethink their own investments. The fact that Berkshire Hathaway continued to shed weight even as the market began to rebound in Q2 underscores how challenging it is to make investing decisions these days. Here's the scorecard for what Warren Buffett was buying and selling during the 3 months ending in June 30th, 2020, based most recently that the company filed on August 14th. And remember, not all Warren Buffett stocks are actually his picks. Some smaller positions are believed to be handled by lieutenants. U.S. Bancorp. U.S. Bancorp is the nation's 5th largest bank by assets and America's biggest regional bank. It's also one of the oldest Buffett stocks in the Berkshire Hathaway portfolio. The Oracle Omaha initiated his position in the first quarter of 2006. And unlike with many other Berkshire bank holdings, Buffett did very little with it during the second quarter. Buffett typically doesn't talk much about U.S. Bancorp, but it has been a solid pick by comparison to many of his other bank holdings. Liberty SiriusXM Group Series A. Berkshire has managed to find a way to own SiriusXM in multiple ways. Liberty Media, another Berkshire holding, has for years held a large stake in SiriusXM Holdings. Berkshire did do a little trimming to this position in Q2 2020. Sort of. He let go of roughly 250,000 Liberty SiriusXM Group Series A shares. But we'll see in a bit, that wasn't his final word on Liberty SiriusXM Group. Charter Communications. Charter Communications markets cable TV, internet, telephone, and other services under the Spectrum brand, which is America's 2nd largest cable operator behind Comcast. Buffett's positions have been trimmed down from 9.4 million shares in early 2017 to just 5.2 million shares as of Berkshire's most recent 13F, including a 210,000 share reduction in Q2 2020. The move away from Charter meshed with a lousy 2018 for the stock, which lost 15% that year. But he had lousy timing in 2019. Buffett continued to sell his position during the first and second quarters. Visa. Warren Buffett took a little bite out of his holdings in America's 2 largest payment providers last quarter. First up, Visa, which operates the world's largest payment network and thus is well positioned to benefit from the growth of cashless transactions and digital mobile payments. Buffett has experienced previously that he wished Berkshire had bought more. Berkshire Hathaway initiated its position in Visa during the third quarter of 2011, and it has proven to be a mammoth winner. Berkshire's 0.5% stake in Visa doesn't even put it among the top 25 investors, though it's a not insignificant 1% or so of Buffett's portfolio. Mastercard. Warren Buffett gives credit where credit is due. While Berkshire Hathaway does indeed own Mastercard, he has nodded to his portfolio manager Todd Combs and Ted Welcher, who made the call to buy both Mastercard and rival Visa. Mastercard, which boasts 926 million cards in use across the world, is one of several payment processors under the Berkshire umbrella. However, after mostly leaving the stock alone since entering a position during the first quarter of 2011, Buffett sold off 300,000 shares, or 7% of the stake, in Q2 2020. Don't take this as a bearish stance on Mastercard. Bank of New York Mellon. Bank of New York Mellon isn't a household name, but it's a big deal in financial services, and Warren Buffett has been enamored with the stock for some time. And despite some trimming in Q2 2020, he largely seems to remain a fan. Today, it's the nation's 9th largest bank by assets, according to data from the Federal Reserve. Berkshire Hathaway first took a position in BK back during Q3 2010, when it paid an estimated average price of $43.90. Buffett remains the largest investor at 8.2% of shares ahead of number 2 Vanguard at 7.3%. M&T Bank. Warren Buffett's affection for M&T Bank, like many of his other financial holdings, seems to have waned this year. Buffett has a soft spot for well-run, unassuming businesses, and he frequently cites the importance of management talent when it comes to deciding where to invest. He certainly was a fan of M&T Bank's late CEO. In 2011, Buffett recommended that Berkshire Hathaway shareholders read M&T's annual reports, which were written by Robert Wilmers, chairman and CEO from 1983 until his death in 2017. Nonetheless, Buffett dumped about 850,000 shares during the second quarter. Even then, Berkshire remains M&T's seventh largest shareholder at 3.5% of the stocks outstanding. Wells Fargo. Buffett has sold off Wells Fargo shares in numerous quarters since the start of 2018. Most of the previous sales appeared to be routine paring on the position to keep it below a regulatory 10% maximum ownership threshold for banks. However, Buffett dumped more than 55 million shares, or nearly 15% of his position at the end of last year. PNC Financial Services. Buffett sold off heavily from his bank positions during the second quarter, and that included lopping off 3.9 million shares from his PNC position. That dropped his holding company well out of PNC's top 10 holders, with 1.3% of the bank's shares outstanding. Buffett had long been comfortable with investing in the banking business. At the 1995 Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, he said the industry falls within our circle of competence to evaluate, but 2020's pain in the financial sector forced Buffett's hand. J.P. Morgan Chase. Berkshire Hathaway treated J.P. Morgan Chase, the nation's largest bank by assets, much the same way it treated PNC during the second quarter. While Buffett upped his stakes several times after entering his position during the third quarter of 2018, he chopped 35.5 million shares, or 61% of the position, last quarter following a 1.8 million share, or 3% trim, during Q1 2020. Part of the original attraction for J.P. Morgan is because of Warren Buffett's professed admiration for CEO Jamie Dimon. The two have partnered with Jeff Bezos, chairman and CEO of Amazon.com. The banks have fallen out of Uncle Warren's favor, so much of the JPM stake had to go. Occidental Petroleum. Warren Buffett spent the better part of 2019 building up a stake in Occidental Petroleum, but it appears that he's finally had enough. BRKB sold the entirety of its Oxy holdings in Q2. First, he dumped Berkshire stakes in Phillips 66 in the first quarter of 2020. Then he bought natural gas assets from Diamond Energy for almost $10 billion in July. And now he's out of Oxy, making Suncor Energy the lone energy component of Berkshire Hathaway's equity portfolio. The fact that Occidental was forced to slash its dividend earlier this year no doubt factored into his decision. At one point, Berkshire stakes represented 2.1 of Occidental shares, making it the company's 8th largest stakeholder. That's all ancient history now. Berkshire Hathaway had also been hacking away at its Goldman Sachs stake for a couple of quarters before unloading everything it had left. He also sold his stocks in Restaurant Brands International and Suncor Energy. Berkshire Hathaway. Okay, this one's a bit of a cheat, but Buffett did pour another big chunk of cash into another blue-chip equity, his own stock. The RM bought back $5.1 billion in Berkshire shares during the second quarter. That follows $1.74 billion in repurchases during the first quarter of 2020 and another $2.2 billion in Q4 2019. In the most recent round of buybacks, Buffett picked up more than $4.6 billion of Berkshire Hathaway's Class B stock and about $486.6 million in Class A shares. It hasn't been the greatest investment so far. Shares in BRKB lost 2.6% over the course of the second quarter, a time when the broader market rallied by nearly 20%. And the conglomerate stock is down almost 7% for the year-to-date versus a gain of 4.4% for the S&P 500. Still, Buffett, as disciplined a value investor as there ever was, is practically shouting from the rooftops that he thinks BRKB is a slam-dunk bargain. So what can you say about Buffett selling stocks in 2020? Let us know in the comments section below. And hey, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so we can continue giving you the best content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.